Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. And I am meeting you once again with lecture 15 of Drama 2, that is modern drama. What we are doing these days, we have started with our third text of modern drama, that is Waiting for Godot. Waiting for Godot is written by Samuel Beckett, who is known for his existentialism and absurdist theatre. In our last talk, we had discussion about Beckett's biography. We had a talk about Beckett's writing style and the writing elements that make him different from other writers of the same era. In today's talk, what we are going to move with, we will start with our summary of Waiting for Godot. We'll get to know what is the plot, what kind of development is there, what is the storyline. We will try to analyze it. We will try to see what kind of meaning we are able to produce. We discussed it in the last talk that this drama has only 2 acts and it's a single setting drama. So we will try to analyze and talk about both of the acts one by one, and then we will try to discuss some of the study questions and some particular aspects that are often questioned to be analyzed. So let's start our today's discussion on Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. So the story starts somehow this way, that we discussed it the other day, that there are 5 to 6 characters. Why am I saying 5 to 6 characters? Because one character's existence is still debatable. We have Vladimir and Estragon as characters, then we have another pair, that is Bozo and Lucky, then we have a boy or maybe 2 boys, again a debatable issue, and then we have presence of Godot, who does not appear in the drama, however has been referred to all the time. Okay, so how the story starts, these 2 men, Vladimir and Estragon, they meet near a tree. We know that this is a single setting drama where the stage is set somehow and near a road, close to a roadside, and then there is a tree in the background. We will definitely discuss what is the significance of this road, a passage where one travels. The stage does not show whether it's the beginning of a road or the ending of a road. It's a passage showing a way to move on. And then there is a tree in the background. So both of these characters, they meet near a tree. They converse on various topics and reveal that they are waiting there for a man named Godot. So during their conversation, we get to know about different things, and so it's revealed through conversation, and the main thing that we get to know, the reason for them being there is that they are waiting for a person named Godot. While they wait, 2 other men enter. So now this is the entry of the other pair. Bozo is on his way to the market to sell his slave, and these 2 characters are shown in a relationship where they share a relationship of master and slave. Bozo is the master and Lucky is the slave, and we get to know that Bozo is about to get rid of Lucky. He pauses for a while to converse with Vladimir and Estragon. Bozo pauses there for a while. In the scene, it shows that although they are on their way, but Bozo stays there for a while in order to converse with Vladimir and Estragon. Lucky entertains them by dancing and thinking, and Bozo and Lucky leave. And then there is some comedy of movement, rather I would say tragedy of movement, that is enhanced through the comic elements. And we slightly touched upon this topic yesterday, that the act of dancing and act of thinking are basically symbolic acts. What do they symbolize? I will invite you to think about it, although I will reveal it at one point. However, what can dancing symbolize in this drama, in this particular background where this drama is written? And what can thinking symbolize? That's the question. So Lucky, who is a slave, Bozo's slave, dances and thinks, and these are the activities that he performs. And soon after that, Bozo and Lucky leave. After Bozo and Lucky leave, a boy enters and tells Vladimir that he is a messenger from Godot. So this is happening in all Act 1. So far we have been introduced with 4 of the characters, Vladimir, Estragon, who both are together, the other couple, Lucky and Bozo, and now the 5th character enters, talking about the 6th character, Godot, as well, and introduces himself as Godot's messenger. We do not have any boy of the name, any name of the boy. Okay. So he tells Vladimir that Godot will not be coming tonight, but that he will surely come tomorrow. So the message is that you stop waiting for Godot tonight. He will not be coming, but he will surely come tomorrow, assuring that he will meet them tomorrow. Vladimir asks him some questions about Godot, and the boy departs. Okay, so through this conversation between Vladimir and the boy, we get to know a few things about Godot. However, how concrete they are, we will get to know when we are analyzing this in detail. After this departure of the boy, Vladimir and Estragon decide to leave, but they do not move as the curtain falls. Now, when they are aware of the fact that Godot is not coming there to meet them, as assumably it would have been fixed somehow, they do talk about leaving the place and moving on. However, we find that until the curtain falls, they are still there and they do not move, and day 1 ends, Act 1 ends there. The next night, Vladimir and Estragon again meet near the tree to wait for Godot. And then we see that they are meeting again and they are still waiting for Godot. Lucky and Bozo enter again, but this time Bozo is blind and Lucky is dumb. Okay, it's the next night and we see all the 4 characters once again. However, there is a sudden change in one of the pairs. Bozo and Lucky, who were previously behaving as master and slave, where Bozo was about to sell his slave. Now we see that Bozo is blind, the master is blind, and Lucky is dumb. He's not able to listen anything anymore. Bozo does not remember meeting the 2 men the night before. One thing that you need to note down is the lack of memory of almost all of these characters. So the first incident of lack of memory is coming up here when Bozo denies that he ever met the couple Estragon and Vladimir before, and he does not remember it. They leave and Vladimir and Estragon continue to wait. So Bozo and Lucky, after a few activities on the stage, they leave, and then it's the same couple again on the stage, Vladimir and Estragon, who are still waiting for Godot. Shortly after, the boy enters and once again tells Vladimir that Godot will not be coming. He insists that he did not speak to Vladimir yesterday. The second incident of almost same sort. We find this boy entering again. Now, whether it's the same boy or it's another boy, we will have to analyze it during our discussion. However, one important development is that the boy enters and he says that he did not speak to Vladimir yesterday. We know that one boy entered yesterday and he talked to the couple and conveyed the message that Godot will not be coming today and he will surely be meeting you tomorrow. However, today this boy assures that he is not the same boy. So the boy, after boy leaves the stage, we see that Estragon and Vladimir decide to leave once again, but again they do not move as the curtain falls, ending the play, and the play ends here. You see the storyline, you see the development. there isn't much development. However, there is a lot. Now, what is this mystery? Let's solve it. Now we are going to analyze a few aspects in a little more detail, seeing that Estragon is trying to take off his boot when Vladimir enters. It's the beginning of this drama when Estragon is shown that he's trying to take his boots off. Estragon's boots are basically another symbol being used in play. What does it symbolize? I want you to keep your guesses there, and let's see when I am to reveal them, how right are you. When Vladimir enters, the two men greet each other. Vladimir examines his hat, another symbol coming up. Now, Estragon's prompt is boot. Vladimir is doing something with his hat. Estragon struggles with his boot. They discuss the versions of the story of the two thieves in the Gospels. There is an allusion. There is a reference from Gospel where they are discussing different versions of a story from a religious book. And Vladimir wonders why one version of the story is considered more accurate than the other. Now, this discussion is again symbolic. Religious book is considered an authentic book. That shows, that means that there should not be differences, or if there are differences, they should not be of altogether upside down differences, not very different from each other. There can be difference of a little more explanation into one version, or a little less explanation into the other version. However, the story cannot be upside down, altogether different in any of the versions. So, when they are discussing two thieves' story from Gospel, this is symbolic. What does it symbolize? I am throwing a question again. Estragon wants to leave, but Vladimir tells him that they cannot because they are waiting for Godot, who they are supposed to meet by the tree. They wonder if they are waiting in the correct spot, or if it is even the correct day. Now we are again being reminded of two things here. Estragon wants to leave. Vladimir tells him that they cannot. We see Estragon, who knows that who's standing there to meet Godot. However, he makes a plan of leaving it. But somehow it is shown that Estragon is leaving because he forgot that he's there to meet Godot. He forgets the purpose of doing something that he's doing so desperately. One point. Second is that they wonder if they are waiting in the correct spot. Now, both characters are put to question whether they remember if it is the right place to meet Godot or not, or if it is even the correct day. Their memory is questioned. Their memory is questioned here, if they remember the details right or wrong. And this point can still be elaborated if we link it with the story from the Gospel. Is it Gospel giving several versions, or is it people creating several versions of the story from the Gospel because they lack good memory? Now, Estragon falls asleep, but Vladimir wakes him because he feels lonely. Now, Vladimir and Estragon are only two characters, only two people in their world that they have over there. One falls asleep, one disappears, we can say, but the other brings him back to life because he feels alone. Estragon starts to tell Vladimir about the dream he was having, but Vladimir does not want to hear this. Private nightmares. Now, Vladimir was feeling alone, so he wakes up Estragon. But when Estragon is up, he wants to share his dream with Vladimir because he needs this sharing activity. But now we find Vladimir refusing being this kind to him and telling that these are private nightmares, that he would not want to listen. So this mutual desire of having companionship for any reason, but how these desires are met, how these desires are fulfilled by different kind of people, is another point that comes up here. Estragon wonders if it would be better for them to part. But Vladimir insists that Estragon would not go far. We are seeing things about Estragon. Estragon tends to leave when he gets to know that Godot is not coming. He wants to leave, but Vladimir stops him. Estragon falls asleep. Vladimir wakes him up. Now Estragon wonders that they should leave each other, they should part now. But Vladimir insists that Estragon should not go far. They argue and Vladimir storms off the stage. But Estragon convinces him to come back and they make up. Now, when they are having this argue ongoing, Vladimir is shown losing his temper and he's storming off the stage. But now Estragon convinces him. Now Estragon is shown as a symbol providing some kind of logic, but how logical that logic was is another question. Now he convinces him to come back and they make up. Now when you are done with your one reading, as you promised, and I took the promise last time, I hope you are able to understand what is happening here. I want you to keep your notebooks and pens in your hand so you can note down the points there, but I am giving you as stingers, and let them grow in your mind and note down your reflections, because these reflections are basically your understanding. Okay, they discuss, both of these characters, Vladimir and Estragon, discuss what to do next while they wait. Now they know that, okay, they are waiting for Godot, however they feel bored and they find there's nothing to do. So they are discussing now what to do while we are waiting. And Estragon suggests hanging themselves from the tree. However, after a discussion of the logistics, they decide to wait and see what Godot says. Now, this is very interesting. When they are, because they find nothing to do and they feel bored, they discuss what to do next. And Estragon, who in the previous act was, he was shown as a kind of person who is trying to convince. The act of convincing basically keeps the capability of keeping some logic. When you have some logic, only then you are able to convince somebody. No matter if you are doing it for right purpose or a wrong purpose, or whatever you are saying has some hidden agendas. Still, the very act of convincing means that you can put up things with logic. But now see what logic Estragon comes up with. He says if we are feeling bored, what we can do is we can hang ourselves up with the tree. However, after a discussion of the logistics, what refrains them from doing so is the logistics, the matter of logistics, that they do not have enough equipment to materialize their fantastic idea. So what they decide to wait for Godot and see what he has to say, to tell them. Estragon is hungry. Now we find Estragon is hungry. Estragon, hunger is another symbol. It's a natural, very natural demand. I would say a natural need of a human being. So Estragon is feeling hungry, and Vladimir gives him a carrot. Carrot is another symbol. Why carrot? Why not any other vegetable or fruit or any other food item to eat? It's a carrot. What does carrot symbolize here in the play? Another question. They discuss whether they are tied to Godot when they hear a terrible cry nearby and huddle together to wait what is coming. Now when they are discussing, they hear a terrible cry out there and they start assuming that somebody is coming towards them, and they are wondering if it is Godot. Okay, so now see what kind of critical discussion we can come up with based on our discussion of the last scene. The beginning of the play establishes Vladimir and Estragon's relationship. What kind of relationship they both keep? We find at times Estragon doing things and saying things that shows that he is dependent on Vladimir. However, at the same time, we find that it's Vladimir who needs Estragon's presence. Now, Vladimir clearly realizes that Estragon is dependent on him when he tells Estragon that he would be nothing more than a little heap of bones. And we have reference for it where Vladimir realizes that Estragon is depending on him, and he tells him that he is not worth depending because he is nothing more than a little heap of bones without him. So in his response, he is not only assuring audience that he is the one who is being relied upon, he tells that he is the one who is relying on Estragon as well. So both are shown in a kind of relationship where they cannot live without each other. Vladimir also insists that Estragon would not go far if they parted. This dependency extends even to minute everyday things, as Estragon cannot even take off his boot without help from Vladimir. We see that this theme of dependency on each other is strongly embedded in each and everything of the play, not only in the dialogues, but even in the silence, in the activities. Everything tells you that both of these characters are sharing a kind of bond where they cannot survive without each other. Even for the little minute things that are happening, when one wants to take off his boots, he cannot do it without the help of the other character. So this is a very strong theme of dependency that is emerging out. The beginning of the play makes Vladimir and Estragon seem interchangeable. So at one point we find it and we feel it that both of these characters are almost the same. You can use one character to substitute the other. There isn't anything entirely different in any of the character that makes that character critical need of the play. If we have to compensate one presence, we can use the other character for that purpose. That shows the similarity of characters, the sameness of characters. For example, one of the characters often repeats a line that the other has previously said. You will find almost their dialogues are similar. One would say something and after a while the other character would say the same thing again. So it's not the thinking process, it's not the dialogue, it's not the presence, it's not their their activities. Everything is almost the same. This happens in the very beginning when the two characters switch lines in the dialogue, with each asking the other, "It hurts," and responding, "Hurts." He wants to know if it hurts. So they both are saying the same thing again and again, asking each other question and responding the same answer, bouncing it back to each other. In addition to demonstrating the way that the two characters can be seen as interchangeable, this external repetition will be found throughout the play as an indicator of the repetitiveness of life in general for Vladimir and Estragon. So this repetitiveness is basically is not repetitiveness of particular dialogues. This repetition is a theme that shows us some aspect of life that are repetitive in nature for human beings. And then this interchangeability is again a theme presented by the writer. Vladimir's discussion of the story of the two thieves brings up the question of textual uncertainty. As I mentioned in a few of the slides in the beginning, that this very act of forgetting that is attached to the several versions made out of one holy text from the gospel gives us the idea how uncertain this textuality is. He points out that the four gospels present entirely different versions of the story. and wonders why one of these versions is accepted as definitive. So this is one very important question. If something is that doubtful, if something is that uncertain, what criteria do we have of calling one better than the other, or one authentic over the rest of three? This question about the reliability of text might cause the reader or audience of this play to question the reliability of this particular text, reliability of information. Also, the repetition of the story by the four Gospels might allude to the repetitiveness of the action of the play. So, this talk made us understand different themes coming out of the drama. Okay, the repetitiveness, the reliability, authenticity, and we talked about interchangeability. So, the repetitiveness of this play is best illustrated by Estragon's repeated request to leave. All the time he's requesting to leave, which are followed each time by Vladimir telling him that they cannot leave because they are waiting for Godot. All the time they are articulating similar kind of dialogues, they are asking same kind of questions, and they are providing almost alike answers as well. The exact repetition of the lines each time this dialogue appears, including the stage directions, reinforces the idea that the same actions occur over and over again, and suggests that these actions happen more times than the play presents. Things are happening. We find it's only two-act play, it's a single setting play, it's a single scene play. However, in the two-act play with almost the 5 characters who can easily be interchanged, there isn't much difference in these 5 characters. They do not present a different kind of people. We find that even the dialogues that they speak are kind of dialogues that can be that are hardly new in nature. They are mere repetitions, not the repetitions of the dialogue only, but also the similar kind of actions with same kind of occurrence of things. In this beginning section, we get the only clue of the nature of Vladimir and Estragon's relationship with Godot. They mention that they asked Godot for a kind of prayer, a vague supplication, which he is currently considering. So we get to know why do they want to see Godot. So they reveal that they have asked Godot for a kind of prayer, a kind of supplication. What their supplication is, what is the purpose behind, it is not revealed by the writer. And they believe that this is currently being considered by him. This creates a parallel between Godot and God. We are shown that there is some kind of power associated with Godot, who is asked to do this kind act for these two characters, a kind of prayer. So a parallel has drawn between God as a character of authority and Godot as a character of power here. It also suggested by their similar names, Godot and God. So the name of Godot sounds like a caricature somehow, and although it's a kind of in fact it's a kind of abstract noun that you would find it here, and it seems that Vladimir and Estragon do consider Godot a kind of religious figure when they mention coming in on their hands and knees, when they are the kind of physical postures, the body postures they are showing when they are assuming that Godot is coming in, and they come on their knees and holding their hands. It shows that they're being humble, they're being courteous, they're being someone inferior than Godot. It shows that they are attaching some kind of religious power with this personality. Okay, so what we are discussing still the Act 1, and where we discussed the entrance of Estragon and Vladimir. Now we are starting with Bozo and Lucky in scene 1. Bozo enters and driving Lucky ahead of him by a rope around his neck. This physical appearance, this entrance is very symbolic in nature. Bozo enters, and without that any conversation takes place, or they narrate or they tell who is keeping authority or who is being driven by the other. It is shown that one character keeps a rope around his neck and being driven by the other character, and then later we get to know that Bozo is the master and Lucky, who has this rope around his neck, is basically the slave. Tamir and Estragon wonder if Bozo is Godot. So now why does this doubt come in? Because of his kind of very very power attached kind of appearance. Both of these characters, they doubt that is this Godot? But he tells them that he is Bozo and asks if they have heard of him. He believes, Bozo as a character believes that he is well known, and that's what he asks from both of these characters and introduces himself. They tell him that they have not. They clearly mention that they do not know Bozo. Bozo commands Lucky to put down his stool and sit down and begins to eat some chicken. Now Bozo commands Lucky to put down his stool. Commanding Lucky shows, again reinforces the presence of authority attached with the character of Bozo, and then Bozo has some power over Lucky as well. And what does he do? He sits down and begins to eat some chicken. His act of eating in front of all these three men and eating chicken is again symbolic. While he eats, Tamir and Estragon circle around Lucky, inspecting him. While he is eating, Tamir and Estragon, they both are inspecting Lucky as a person. They notice, Tamir and Estragon notice a sore on his neck. His neck is bleeding somehow or is injured somehow, and begin to ask him a question, but Bozo tells them to leave him alone. We find both of these characters inquiring about Lucky's appearance, about Lucky's being in some kind of pain. However, Bozo tells them to go off. Estragon asks Bozo if he can have the bones from his chicken, and Bozo tells him that Lucky gets priority over them. What is on demand? It's not the meat, it's not the basic food, it's the leftover bones. And now Bozo is being very kind to them, telling them, he's being very kind to Lucky, in fact, telling them that if he has to give away bones, the leftover, he would prefer his own slave. Estragon asks Lucky if he wants the bones, but he does not reply, and Bozo tells Estragon that he can have the bones. So when Lucky is asked for if he would want his share of food or not, he does not reply. And Bozo, although he mentioned that previously that he would give this food to his own slave, gives it to Estragon, doing all the different what he says. He commands that he has never known Lucky to refuse a bone and hopes that he is not sick. Now he's commenting that he has never known Lucky refusing a bone, refusing his leftover in terms of food, and he hoped that he is not sick, because this can be the only condition that he would refuse his food. Tamir suddenly explodes with anger at Bozo's treatment of Lucky, but then seems embarrassed at his outburst. Tamir is shown a kind of character who reacts on Bozo's treatment to his slave inhuman treatment to his slave. However, very soon we see that he feels his anger an act of embarrassment. Bozo decides to go, but then decides to stay and smoke another pipe. Now, smoking pipe is again symbolic. It's a kind of luxury that the master exercises here, enjoys here, where people are wanting food, and what they have in offer is the leftover, and leftover bones and leftover shows the trivialness, the nothingness of food. Basically, it's no food. Bone is no food. Bone is not to eat. So what they would get in their demand of hunger is something that is not edible, right? And in this situation, this person is smoking. Smoking is considered a kind of luxury in this situation. Vladimir wants to leave, but Bozo reminds him of his appointment with Godot. Now Vladimir wants to leave. Previously we found that Estragon wanted to leave and Vladimir stopped him. Now Vladimir wants to leave, but Bozo reminds him of his appointment with Godot. Bozo reminding him this thing is again symbolic. Estragon begins to wonder aloud why Lucky does not put down his legs. Bozo begins to answer the question after much preparation involving his vaporizer spray, but gives a convoluted and contradictory response. Estragon begins to wonder aloud why Lucky does not put down his legs. And Bozo is seemed kind of authoritative figure who does not let his slave answer but answers himself, and that answer is a vague answer, does not keep any logic in it. And then what he's doing it while being involved in vaporizing spray. Again, the spray is symbolic in nature. Vladimir asks Bozo if he wants to get rid of Lucky. Okay, Bozo responds that he does not. He does, and is taking him to the fair to sell him. So now Vladimir is asking Bozo intention about his slave, and Bozo very clearly discussing that he wants to get rid of this slave and now going to the fair to sell him off. Lucky begins to cry. Poor Lucky, when he gets to hear this, he begins to cry, and Bozo hands Estragon a handkerchief to wipe away his tears. Bozo handing over handkerchief to Estragon, not to Lucky, is another act to be noted. It's a kind of human relation that we are discussing right now. Estragon approaches Lucky, but Lucky kicks him in the shins. Bozo tells Vladimir and Estragon that he has learned a lot from Lucky, and that Lucky has been serving him for nearly 60 years. It's been 60 years that is revealed by the writer between these two characters as master and slave, where Lucky has been serving his master for 60 years and master is going to sell him off. One thing. Second, what he gives to servant as food is leftover, and leftover that is not edible. Third thing, when Lucky is crying out of some pain, and we know the pain when he's not acknowledged for his services, he's disregarded, he bursts into tears. Bozo does not offer him a handkerchief. He offers this handkerchief to another character to take it to Lucky. Vladimir becomes angry that Bozo is going to get rid of Lucky after so much time. And Bozo gets upset. Now Vladimir is speaking sense, and he somehow is speaking as conscious, and Bozo gets upset on this reminding of a very genuine thing. Vladimir then gets angry and Lucky for mistreating Bozo, and then Vladimir again is shown as a kind of philanthropist who gets very upset and angry at Lucky for mistreating Bozo. However, is he being logical in his anger at Lucky for mistreating Bozo? Because now he's showing that Bozo is getting rid of Lucky because of slave's mistreatment to his master. Alright, now Bozo calms down, but he realizes this act of Vladimir being angry at Lucky makes Bozo feel better. But he realizes that he has lost his pipe and begins to get upset again. So he has no losing his pipe and losing his servant, or losing his pipe or being unfair to his servant is almost the same thing. He's getting equally upset for both of these things. Logic. We need to find out the logic and how important a relationship to Bozo in comparison to a kind of useless thing that he's finding. While Estragon laughs at Bozo, Vladimir exits, apparently to go to the bathroom. He returns in a bad mood but soon calms down. Vladimir exits for a natural reason, but we see that Estragon is laughing at Bozo's being upset at losing a pipe. However, Vladimir goes and comes back, but when he comes back, the change is that it's not a change. He's still in bad mood because he was previously angry with Lucky and he is still keeping up with that mood. Bozo sits down again and begins to explain the twilight. When he finishes, he asks them to evaluate his performance and then offers to have Lucky perform for them. Estragon wants to see Lucky dance, while Vladimir wants to hear him think. So Bozo commands him to dance and then think. Now Lucky is being played by all three characters. Though one is the master, with him the Lucky has been since last 60 years, and other two characters who have been by taking turns been kind to him for a while and then being angry to him for a while too, but now demanding equally as the master is demanding from him is to dance to entertain them and to think aloud. So cutting off all the possibilities for a slave to keep up his privacy of even thinking. His thoughts are being commanded. His thoughts are being ruled by people over there. Okay, now we know that it is revealed by the characters that the master and the slave, they both have been together since 60 years. So we can well imagine the age of master as well as of the slave. Now slave is being commanded to dance. So Lucky dances and Estragon is not very impressed. Bozo tells them that he used to dance much better. Vladimir asks him to tell Lucky to think, but Bozo says that he cannot think without his hat. So thinking without hat is symbolic. Vladimir puts Lucky's hat on his head and he begins to think aloud, spouting a long stream of words and phrases that amount to gibberish. As he goes on, the other three suffer more and more and finally throw themselves on him and seize his hat to make him stop. Bozo tramples on the hat and the men help Lucky up and give him all the bags. Bozo is about to leave but finds that he cannot. He decides that he needs a running start. So he starts from the opposite end of the stage and drives Lucky across as they exchange goodbyes. This is a very interesting kind of situation. He's driving his slave and he finds that he needs a running start to accelerate his human carriage, and that he does by taking a start in the beginning of the stage. Lucky being switched on by putting hat on his head and then switched off by taking the hat off for thinking is again a very symbolic act here. And third thing is that what he thinks aloud is all. How logical is that? When you read, definitely you would have read it. Read it again and see what kind of logic he's producing when he's thinking, because this act of thinking is very symbolic in the play. About his pipe, about Bozo's pipe, that the second pipe is never as sweet as the first, can apply to experience in general. It suggests that feeling and events dull with repetition. Repetition is one key aspect of the drama in many ways. Even the acts are a kind of repetition of the similar activities. The second act, you may find it a reflection of the first act. The entrance and exit of the characters, the purpose, everything is being repeated. The dialogues are being repeated. So, but at the same time, it is being said clearly that the second pipe is not as sweet as the first was, telling that things get dull with repetition. So monotony is exercised, monotony is acknowledged. However, at the same time, monotony is condemned for its repetition. Repetition of events in the play is emphasized by further textual repetition. When Vladimir and Estragon alternate short lines back and forth, Estragon often repeats himself at the end of a string of lines. This occurs for the first time in this exchange. Estragon, the circus. Vladimir, the music hall. Estragon, the circus. The same troupe will recur several times in a row at the beginning of the second act, always with Estragon repeating himself. So the act of repetition and then the act of repetition being condemned for the monotony is again very symbolic. We see here that Vladimir supports Estragon after Estragon is kicked by Lucky when he cries that he cannot walk. Vladimir offers to carry him. Vladimir offers Estragon to carry him because he experiences pain, because he is kicked by Lucky, if necessary. This illustrates Vladimir's attempt to protect his partner somehow and take care of Estragon. So, Vladimir is often very quick to change his mind when he learns of Lucky's long term of service to Bozo. He becomes angry with Bozo for mistreating his servant. So we see a kind of very quick change in Vladimir's thinking and his actions. At times he is angry with Bozo for getting rid of his so obedient and long-term kept servant who has been with him for 60 years. And at one point we find him very angry with Lucky as well for mistreating his master, because otherwise why would a master leave his servant? So it's the servant who is being at fault. However, when Bozo gets upset and says that he cannot bear it any longer, Vladimir quickly transfers his anger to Lucky, whom he reproaches for mistreating his master after so many years. So he changes tones. This illustrates how Vladimir's opinion can be easily swayed by a change in circumstances. In this section, we see the first suggestions that Vladimir and Estragon might represent all of humanity. When Bozo first enters, he notes that Vladimir and Estragon are of the same species as he is, made in God's image. Later, when Bozo asks Estragon what his name is, he replies, Adam. So Bozo, Estragon tells his name as Adam one point as well, and that is symbolic in nature too. This comparison of Estragon to Adam, the first man, suggests that he may represent all of mankind. And this link between Estragon and Adam also relates to the idea of Godot as God. Bozo's inquiry about how Vladimir and Estragon found him suggests that Bozo is giving a performance. This notion is reinforced when he has Lucky perform for them. It seems that Bozo and Lucky appear primarily to entertain Vladimir and Estragon. After Bozo and Lucky leave, the other two men comment that their presence helped the time pass more rapidly. So the thing that we have been discussing, they're being bored, and the entrance of both of these characters and then they acknowledging that their presence helped them pass the time and time more rapidly is significant here. Bozo's failure to depart anticipates the way that Vladimir and Estragon remain waiting at the end of each of the acts after saying they will depart. However, even after saying, I don't seem to be able to depart, Bozo does actually manage to leave. Bozo move on while Vladimir and Estragon remain fixed even as the curtain falls at the end of each act. So this activity where one is wanting to leave, aiming to leave, deciding to leave, one pair, but they are not able to leave. However, the other pair thinks it and just does it. So this is again symbolic here and calls your attention. So so far we have been discussing Bozo and Lucky scene, their entrance, their introduction and entrance into Act 1, and it has been quite a long discussion, more than what I expected, so it seems that we'll have to continue with our discussion. So let us have a quick review of what we did in today's talk. We started our discussion of the summary of the play Waiting for Godot by Samuel Barclay Beckett, and we are not only summarizing, we are discussing the important developments and events of the play to see what themes are emerging out of the text. And so far we have covered to some extent the introduction and Bozo and Lucky's entrance into Act 1, and it appears that we'll have to continue the same into our next lecture, and we will try to cover this up. We will move on to we would like to move on to Act 2 and see how it is different from Act 1, and we will start with our study questions, critical questions. So we'll definitely see you in the next lecture, but before that you come up and we have this discussion on the talk that is in process. I would like you to take your notes all down together and try to start reflecting on them, because this is what I feel about this text, and I want you to make your own meaning, produce your own meaning, and try composing your own themes and tell why do you think this theme is emerging out of text, and what are your dramatic references for making these statements, like we discussed in the previous lecture. How do you compose critical reflections? And I will see you inshallah in the next lecture. Bye then, Allah Hafiz.